Hello and welcome to another episode of Punk Rock Politics with John Smith. I hope everybody's staying safe out there, isolating themselves, self-quarantining, getting tested when available, and practicing social distancing when you do have to go out, talking to your neighbors, either 6 feet away at least. Further would be even better. We're just finding out, trying to figure out this disease. Or making sure you wash your hands all the time. Call your neighbors, text them, yell across the street and say, hey, what's your number? I'm going to get some food. You want me to pick you something up? You don't even have to see each other in person. You could leave the food on the front porch. They could reimburse you, or if you have enough money and they're out of a job or having financial problems, probably even before this crisis. But do what you can. Try to connect with people on social media. Call your local government or county or state government, or even federal government maybe, to get resources on who can help. There's nonprofits out there. There's a lot of people coming together to try to fight this thing together. So please do all you can to stay safe and do all you can to help others while staying safe. Here are some headlines from today, March 23rd, 2020, from democracynow.org. Okay. Global COVID-19 death toll passes 15,000 as Italy drafts military to enforce lockdown. The death toll from the coronavirus pandemic has now topped 15,000 with over 340,000 confirmed cases. Italy remains the epicenter of the pandemic in Europe with nearly 5,500 deaths, 650 of those just on Sunday, and nearly 60,000 identified cases. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte instructed all residents to stay at home except to produce medicines and food, and ordered non-essential businesses to shut down for the next 2 weeks as the country scrambles to slow down the outbreak. Italy has drafted its military to enforce lockdown orders in the hard-hit Lombardy region. It also has appealed to the U.S. military to assist with medical needs. A group of over 50 Cuban doctors and nurses landed in Italy Sunday to assist with the fight against the coronavirus. Cuban doctors have regularly deployed to pandemic-stricken regions as part of a medical diplomacy program. Cuba has one of the best healthcare, systems in the world. World leaders go to Cuba over the United States and many other countries to get aid. It's like it's a government-run program. It's a Medicare for All type system. I think it's even more government-controlled, like England has. The misnomer about Bernie Sanders praising them, and he's condemned dictatorship or authoritarianism, and stopping people from dissenting and locking people up and all that stuff. But nonetheless, before the Cuban Revolution, Cuba was essentially a plantation for a bunch of rich politicians in the U.S. and businessmen in the U.S. and the mafia. And people were like slaves and didn't have anything. So it doesn't mean that what some of the tactics that Castro or Guevara were like humane tactics or the best way to go about things, but there is something about the fact that 59 or 60 people had a revolution and won against the U.S. government. And there's something to say about the fact that we've had an embargo on them since 59. So if you're listening to propaganda about Bernie Sanders praising dictators, look up Joe Biden, Michael Bloomberg, and the rest of the lot that ran. And look at how they actually hang out with and refuse to call legitimate psychopathic murderers far worse than anything Fidel Castro ever did by far, and never did anything good for their people. Now check that out. All right, new headline. Angela Merkel to self-quarantine after her doctor tests positive for COVID-19. Spain plans to extend its lockdown by 2 weeks as the virus killed close to another 400 people Sunday, bringing the total number of reported deaths to more than 2,000. Greece also announced a nationwide lockdown starting today. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said she was self-quarantining after her doctor tested positive for coronavirus as the country barred groups of more than 2 people from gathering, with the exception of families. This is Chancellor Merkel addressing the German public during a Sunday broadcast. Chancellor Angela Merkel. The overwhelming majority of people understand that it's now down to every individual, that everybody can and must do their bit to stop the virus. That's how we show that we care for older people and the sick, for whom the virus is the most dangerous. In short, that's how we save lives. First, there's another headline. First COVID-19 cases reported in occupied Gaza, war-stricken Syria, and Afghanistan. Wait till I get to the headline, please. I hope you stick with me. Wait till I get to the headline about what happened and people overdosing because of something Trump said. Just wait. It's coming soon. So again, the headline is First COVID-19 cases reported in occupied Gaza, war-stricken Syria, and Afghanistan. In Gaza, the first two coronavirus cases were announced Saturday. Authorities have shut down restaurants and cafes and suspended Friday prayers as residents fear an outbreak will further cripple a health system already suffering from Israel's blockade, which causes constant shortages of medicine and poor sanitation services. With a population of over 1.8 million people, the besieged Gaza Strip is also one of the most densely populated places on Earth and has often been called an open-air prison. Meanwhile, shelter-in-place orders were announced in the occupied West Bank, where around 60 cases have been reported. On Sunday, Syria announced its first confirmed case of COVID-19 as humanitarian groups warn of the catastrophic effects the disease will have in the war-torn country. In Afghanistan, a health official confirmed the country's first coronavirus-related death Sunday. But do you like that? I was just going to say, never mind. Sorry. Okay, coronavirus cases mount across Africa. The World Health Organization has warned African nations to prepare for the worst as cases continue to multiply. The continent now has over 1,000 confirmed cases in over 42 countries. In South Africa, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases has topped 270, making it the country with the highest number of infections in sub-Saharan Africa. In Burkina Faso, 4 government ministers tested positive for coronavirus as cases there topped nearly 100, the highest number in West Africa. Lockdowns are underway in multiple countries, including Rwanda, Ghana, and Tunisia, which now have 75 confirmed cases of COVID-19. See? So between Rwanda, Ghana, and Tunisia, there's 75 confirmed cases, and they're on lockdown. They're underway. They're already doing lockdowns. What did Donald Trump do? And who are his cheerleaders? The Republican Party. What did they do? They put you at risk. So anything they do now is only to cover the tracks of an awful, awful response. Anyway, the article continues. So meanwhile, travelers who arrive in Ethiopia will face mandatory quarantine as of today. Somalia is lifting its ban on international flights for 2 days so that citizens outside the country can come home. Here we go. Ready? 2 Nigerians overdose self-medicating with chloroquine after Trump praised anti-malaria drug as possible COVID-19 treatment. In Nigeria, health authorities are warning against self-medicating after 2 patients overdosed on the anti-malaria drug chloroquine, which President Trump has praised as a possible treatment for coronavirus. Tests are currently being carried out with anti-malarials in the U.S. and other countries, but the FDA and the World Health Organization, or WHO, have not approved its use as a treatment for COVID-19. Back in the U.S., lupus patients have reported shortages of drug hydroxychloroquine, which is used to treat both malaria and lupus, following Trump's recent statements. New headline. Coronavirus leads to lockdowns, travel bans in Latin America as a Colombian prison riot turns deadly. In Latin America, Chile has confirmed at least 630 cases of COVID-19. Brazil has closed its borders to 8 neighboring countries for the next 15 days as cases there top 1,600. 25 deaths have been reported in Brazil. In Ecuador, by the way, the guy who's running Brazil is like a right-wing lunatic. And that's why he's not responding appropriately with higher numbers than even all these different African nations and European nations and so on and so forth who are on lockdown. In Ecuador, he's also burning down the rainforest at an exponential rate that was already terrible for many, many years, and we need to stop it or this whole world is just gone, at least for the human race and pretty much all the species of plants and animals that are already here, except the bad ones. In Ecuador, where all flights are currently banned, the mayor of Guayaquil ordered vehicles to block the runway of the city's international airport to prevent an airplane from the Spanish carrier Iberia from landing. I'm going to read that again. In Ecuador, where all flights are currently banned, the mayor of Guayaquil ordered vehicles to block the runway of the city's international airport to prevent an airplane from the Spanish carrier Iberia from landing. The plane later landed in Quito. Ecuador has reported nearly 800 cases and 14 deaths. The country's health minister has resigned, citing lack of resources and government mismanagement. In Colombia, at least 23 people were killed and dozens injured as a riot rocked a Bogota prison, where prisoners have been protesting dire sanitary conditions and demanding protection from the coronavirus. Colombia is set to go on lockdown starting Tuesday for a period of 3 weeks. Meanwhile, Bolivia announced it was postponing presidential elections in May as it heads into a 2-week nationwide quarantine period. In Central America, Guatemala and El Salvador have both enacted strict curfews. Fate of Tokyo Olympics still unknown as Canada, Australia refused to send athletes. The International Olympic Committee said Sunday it is still weighing options for this summer's Tokyo Olympics, including postponement. The Japanese government also appears to be open to a postponement following earlier rejections of the idea. Canada and Australia said they would not send their athletes to Japan this summer and urged for a one-year postponement. India locks down major cities in effort to contain coronavirus spread. In India, authorities have placed lockdown orders on 75 districts, which include the heavily populated cities of New Delhi, Mumbai, and Kolkata, after a nationwide 14-hour test curfew took place on Sunday. It's Calcutta. Just want to correct that. I'm reading really fast. I haven't read this before. India currently has just over 400 confirmed cases of COVID-19, but health officials say the disease could spread extremely fast through the country, which has the world's second highest population at 1.3 billion. China's got the largest. 1 in 3 people in U.S. under lockdown as case soar and critical supplies dwindle. Here in the United States, cases have now topped 35,000 and over 450 deaths. The U.S. now has the third most confirmed cases worldwide. A widespread lack of testing nationwide means the actual number of cases, however, is likely significantly higher. Around 1 out of every 3 Americans or U.S. residents are now under stay-at-home orders, as Ohio, Louisiana, Delaware, and the city of Philadelphia became the latest places to announce lockdown measures, joining the states of New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California, and Connecticut. New York has around half of coronavirus cases in the U.S., with nearly 17,000 known infections and 150 fatalities. Sorry. It's not nice to read for any of these places, but, New York, I went to school there, and I know people there, and I don't even know if some of them, it could be people I know, or their family or friends. Teachers, staff at the school, friends I met in the city, people I went to school with. Anyway, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo urged the federal government to take over the production and acquisition of much-needed medical supplies as states have had to compete with one another for the fast-dwindling resources. New York City Mayor de Blasio warned the city is just 10 days away from massive shortages of critical supplies as he blasted Trump for his response to the pandemic. Mayor Bill de Blasio. Right now, I have asked repeatedly for the military to be mobilized, for the Defense Production Act to be used to its fullest, to get us things like ventilators so people can live who would otherwise die. Chuck, I can't be blunt enough. If the president doesn't act, people will die who could have lived otherwise. New York Hospital Network bans all visitors during birth, including partners. The New York Presbyterian Hospital System announced Sunday it would no longer allow any visitors for patients giving birth, including partners. The World Health Organization has said that all pregnant people, including those with confirmed or suspected COVID-19 infections, should have the right to have a chosen companion present during labor. I don't know if I agree with that. I understand why they're doing that. I'm surprised the WHO or World Health Organization is saying that. I understand the emotion, but it could cause the baby to get it and die. A newborn, it could cause the mother, while she's already under extreme duress from having a baby, to die. As sad and as unfortunate as it is, it's a lot worse if they get sick of COVID-19 and die. Harvey Weinstein reportedly tests positive for COVID-19 in jail. Disgraced Hollywood mogul and convicted rapist Harvey Weinstein has tested positive for COVID-19, according to local reports. He is currently being held at the Wend Correctional Facility in western New York, but was previously at Rikers Island, as well as a patient at Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan. At least 38 people at Rikers, including prisoners and staff, have tested positive for the coronavirus as fears mount over the disease-ravaging prison populations. At least 23 people have been released from Rikers so far. Hundreds of prisoners around the country have been released in recent days as part of an effort to curb poison populations amid the coronavirus crisis. Hundreds of prisoners around the country have been released in recent days as a part of an effort to curb prison populations amid the coronavirus crisis. The first confirmed case at a federal prison was reported at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. Trump said at his Sunday press briefing, the White House is considering releasing elderly and nonviolent federal prisoners. They should be released anyway. Coronavirus cases grow across U.S. In Washington state, an outbreak at another nursing center is being reported, with at least 1 dead and dozens more infected. Washington was one of the early epicenters of the pandemic in the U.S. at the Life Care Center of Kirkland, where the disease killed 35 people. In Ohio, reproductive rights defenders are calling out attempts by Attorney General Dave Yost to close abortion clinics amid the coronavirus crisis by labeling abortions non-essential procedures. State Senator Nikki Antonio said every woman who seeks an abortion knows it's an essential, time-sensitive procedure, especially in states like Ohio, which has drastically limited the window when abortions are allowed. It is inexcusable that our state's attorney would play politics with a global pandemic. In Florida, the University of Tampa and several other Florida colleges said a number of its students who celebrated spring break have tested positive for coronavirus days after images of densely packed revelers on the state's beaches went viral and caused outrage. A Florida attorney is suing Governor Ron DeSantis to compel him to close all of Florida's beaches to deal with the pandemic. Hunger strikes are now underway in 3 Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, detention centers in New Jersey as prisoners call out deteriorating conditions and a failure to protect them from a potential outbreak of COVID-19. In media news, tributes poured in from NBC News hosts and other employees that longtime NBC audio technician Larry Edgeworth died of medical complications related to COVID-19. Dozens of Mike Bloomberg campaign staffers have been told they were exposed to coronavirus just hours before they were laid off and days before they were set to lose their health insurance. By the way, Michael Bloomberg insisted that he would support anybody who becomes the eventual Democratic nominee and promised that people in his campaign would keep their jobs. And that's who Joe Biden wants to make his vice president. That's who Joe Biden wants to make, not vice president. That's who Joe Biden wants to make the head of the World Bank. He's like $60-something billion. And he's a piece of garbage. And he's an authoritarian figure just like Trump and just like Biden. They'll sell their soul to anybody. Anyway. Wow. I just can't. I want to read that again because I want you to hear it. It's soaking in on me. This is serious stuff, and to do this to people is just disgusting. Dozens of Mike Bloomberg campaign staffers have been told they were exposed to coronavirus just hours before they were laid off and days before they were set to lose their health insurance. In other 2020 election news, Bernie Sanders' campaign raised over $2 million for coronavirus charities in 2 days after making an appeal to supporters. Indigenous communities say they have been neglected in the federal response to coronavirus as emergency funds and medical aid for tribal groups have been delayed. On Friday, the Trump administration said it was limiting non-essential travel on the U.S.-Mexico border. Despite the travel restrictions, construction of Trump's border wall is continuing, putting construction crews at risk of infecting and costing taxpayers billions of dollars as experts say the economy is already in a recession. And nationwide, the deadline to file taxes has been extended 3 months to July 15th. The deadline for the census has been extended by 2 weeks. We just got something in the mail today from the census. Trump activates National Guard as lawmakers fail to pass coronavirus stimulus package. At a press conference Sunday, President Trump said the National Guard will be activated in California, New York, and Washington State, where states of emergency have been called. Trump referred to himself once again as a wartime president during the press conference. When asked if he would exempt his own companies from bailout, Trump refused to do so. Trump also rejected calls from governors and hospitals to use the Defense Production Act to ramp up production and critical medical supplies, despite earlier statements he would put it into high gear. Trump also shot down proposals to nationalize industries to better manage production of such supplies. President Donald Trump: "We're a country not based on nationalizing our business. Call a person over in Venezuela, ask them, how did nationalization of their business work out? Not too well. The concept of nationalizing our business is not a good concept. Except it built our country, you incompetent clown. It made the biggest middle class to ever exist when we did the same thing massively in World War II. Put women to work, mass produced a ton of goods, built tanks, ammunitions, made sure food was being made for the soldiers and for the people at home. We repurposed almost all of our factories. We repurposed so much of our business to fight in World War II and to fight the Nazis and the fascists." At another press briefing Friday, Trump lashed out at an NBC reporter, Peter Alexander, after he asked what Trump's message to the American people is. Peter Alexander: what do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared? President Donald Trump: "I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead." Reporter: "Mr. President, the units that were just declared." President Donald Trump: "I think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people." I don't even know what that means. All the guy said, Peter Alexander said, what do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared? That is a basic question any president would be asked. It's a softball question for any competent president whatsoever. So not Joe Biden, not Donald Trump, but it's a softball question. Their irritability, their arrogance, and their ignorance, it just precedes them. So Bernie Sanders, thank God, is staying in this for the long haul, as far as I understand, and because he's responsible only to the people, and we will fight this thing all the way to the end, and then some, if necessary. All right. Meanwhile, lawmakers continue to debate a massive stimulus package today after Democratic senators blocked a $2 trillion bill Sunday they say failed to protect workers. This is Massachusetts Senator and former presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren speaking Sunday. Senator Elizabeth Warren, they're trying to advance a proposal that would be great for giant corporations and leave everyone else behind. We're not here to create a slush fund for Donald Trump and his family or a slush fund for the Treasury Department to be able to hand out to their friends. We're here to help workers. We're here to help hospitals. And right now, what the Republicans have proposed does neither of those. It's a very good statement, Elizabeth Warren. Too bad you don't believe in your policies and would rather have a position in a stolen election for Joe Biden than back Bernie Sanders and your supposed principles. Now, if you know anything about me, I've been kind of calling this out for 4 or 5 years, but whatever. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul became the first senator to test positive for coronavirus. His office says he did not have any symptoms. Several Republican senators say Rand Paul was in the Senate gym and pool on Sunday, just hours before receiving his diagnosis. Utah Senators Mike Lee and Mitt Romney have announced they'd be self-quarantining following the news. Another article. New evidence of Trump's botched response to coronavirus. As criticism of Trump's response to the coronavirus crisis mounts, Reuters is reporting Trump eliminated a position last year at the Centers for Disease Control, which was tasked with helping to detect, investigate, and help contain disease outbreaks in China. Unbelievable. This comes as reports emerged Friday that Trump continued to play down the threat of coronavirus despite repeated warnings by U.S. intelligence in January and February that a global pandemic was likely. Meanwhile, Politico is reporting the Justice Department has quietly been pushing lawmakers to grant the department new powers amid the public health crisis, including the ability to have some judges detain people indefinitely without trial, pause court proceedings during emergencies, and ban people with COVID-19 from seeking asylum. The measures are not likely to pass the Democratic World House. In an interview with Science magazine, Anthony Fauci, head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, addressed Trump's many erroneous official statements about the pandemic, saying, "I can't jump in front of the microphone and push him down." Fauci added, "Okay, he said it. Let's try and get it corrected for the next time." Mike Pompeo in Afghanistan in attempt to revive flailing U.S. Taliban deal. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arrived in the Afghan city Kabul. I'm sorry, I'm saying these all wrong. I know how to say them right. It's weird. It's like I got some... Anyway, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo arrived in the Afghan city of Kabul yesterday amid the mounting coronavirus crisis as he attempts to move forward the historic U.S. Taliban peace deal, which has been strained by ongoing violence and political turmoil. Pompeo is meeting President Ashraf Ghani and his rival Abdullah, who both claimed victory in September's elections. I know that's a lot of information. I gave you a little commentary there in the midst of it. I'm not going to speak long because this video went on for long, but those are important things to know. Donald Trump is definitely fumbling this crisis. Make sure people are aware of it. They say he's supposedly going up in the polls. It's going to be short-lived when people really see what's going on. I think people are just scared and they want something done, and Donald Trump is saying he's doing things, and even the things he's saying he's doing, he's not really doing, you know? And that includes like how Bill de Blasio was calling him out. Bill de Blasio, who wasn't a sellout to the corporate establishment in the DNC, and backed Bernie Sanders and said he's the only person fighting for working people left in the race. And this was when other people were still in the race. And he's absolutely right. And that's the truth, so don't forget it. More than half of the country. Get out, make sure you vote in a safe way. Hopefully they don't try to force the vote during this pandemic like they did in Arizona, Illinois, and Florida in those primaries. Ohio was smart. The governor did the right thing. He's a Republican governor, I forget his name, and he fought to have them postponed. And that's what they all should have done. They should be considered illegitimate And that's just those three. If you want to get into all the exit polls of voter suppression ever since Super Tuesday and Mini Tuesday, which clearly seems to be a blatant rigging of an election where a rather unpopular candidate somehow crushed the most popular candidate running for a long time, and everybody was questioning when Joe Biden was going to call it quits, or, saying his last hope was South Carolina, winning a southern state like South Carolina after losing 3 states and getting crushed by Bernie Sanders, where he had 55.1% or so of the vote, more than all the other candidates combined, and crushed Joe Biden. And they have the most representative, demographics of the whole country, and Bernie won every single one except 65 and older, but he even had 38 or 40% was making gains with them. And then we're supposed to believe the whole thing just flipped because a couple of elitist, corrupt Democrats who dropped out of the presidential race, or a bunch, I should say, at this point, backed him. People don't care about that. It's ridiculous. Not enough people, anyway. Not enough to have these kind of giant wins. Anyway, just like, the Defense Production Act, what Bill de Blasio was calling out is absolutely right. Again, he said, right now I have asked repeatedly for the military to be mobilized, for the Defense Production Act to be used to its fullest to get us things like ventilators so people can live who would otherwise die. Chuck, I can't be blunt enough. If the president doesn't act, people will die who could have lived otherwise. Period. These are what healthcare professionals are asking for. This is what the scientists are asking for. This is what historians are telling us. Political scientists, analysts, this is what they're telling us. We need to do this now or people will die. Donald Trump is an unfit president, just like Joe Biden would be. He's already unfit. He's having serious issues. This isn't even some kind of ego thing, or we're not trying to offend anybody who thinks that these are good people or likes them for this reason or that. Maybe some people like them because they're not good people. But those people are probably damaged and just need help. They need to talk to somebody, because even if that's how you feel, they're hurting you economically. They're hurting your rights, your freedoms, and the ideals of attaining actual democracy, which Bernie Sanders is fighting tooth and nail for with the people at his back and not taking any money from corporations. And he's calling his coronavirus plan is one of the best ones I think it's the best one any politician has put out there. And if you didn't see my previous video, please check them out. There's a nice quick one before this. It's only about 6 or 7 minutes long. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is calling to give $2,000 immediately to every American, and no matter what their wealth is, and that the ones that make a lot of money will have to pay back the $2,000 next year in taxes, which makes perfect sense. We can print money. Countries do it all over the world. Now wait till you hear the next story I'm going to release after this video about what Donald Trump is saying now. There's just so much news. I haven't even gotten to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Kamala Harris. They've all been mentioned in these videos, and I've discussed it briefly, but I mean, the news is just pouring out. Democracy Now!, by the way, is an amazing organization, and they do a lot of video clips and stuff as well as the print. And you should definitely check them out. Amy Goodman is awesome, and I hope someday Amy Goodman sees this or one of my other videos where I give her a shout out, because she's just one of the best journalists consistently I've ever seen. She's got a cool voice. She's very professional. She's pretty, she's smart. She's a great journalist. She's great at reading the news, and they give you the real deal news. So, thanks for joining Punk Rock Politics. If you like this video or you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. Click on all or double click on the bell to make sure you get those little parentheses. That's how you get updates from the channels that you subscribe to on YouTube. They changed it so you barely or don't get any if you just do the regular bell. You got to either pick all or double click and get those parentheses. Make sure you get them. And check out Punk Rock Politics check out patreon.com/Punk Rock Politics. Again, that's patreon.com/Punk Rock Politics. Thanks for joining me. Stay safe out there, everybody. Take this very seriously. and don't risk your own health or anybody else. Take care.